Hi everyone, and welcome to this open day session for the Bachelor of Education Primary. My name is Edwina El-Hashim and I am the course director of the Bachelor of Education Primary. We will speak about this course first in this session. I also want to let you know that later in the session, we will talk about the Associate Degree of Education, which is a related course to the Bachelor of Education Primary. I'd like to begin the presentation by undertaking an acknowledgement of country. Deakin would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which our university campuses are based. The Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Geelong campuses are located, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Burwood campus is located, and the Pik-Wurrung people of the Maar Nation, on whose country our Warrnambool campus is located. In this presentation, there's a few things that you will hear about. We'll begin by talking about why you might be considering studying primary education. We'll have a look at our course specifically. We'll look at some of the units or the subjects that we offer in the course and the overall course structure, so you can get a really good idea about what you will undertake as a Deakin Bachelor of Education Primary student. We'll talk about practical experiences, which are very, very important in an education degree. These are the experiences that you gain when you are in schools, practicing the things that you learn. We will then talk about the Associate Degree of Education, which is another course that relates to the Bachelor of Education Primary that might be of interest to some of you here. And we'll talk about entry requirements and how to apply for both courses. After the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for some questions, and we really encourage you to stick around and ask those questions that you might have about our courses. So why would you study education? Your future in education is a really big and important decision to think about. There's never been a better time to become a teacher. If you come to Deakin, you'll get a world-class education. Deakin is one of the top 5 universities for education in Australia, which means that we're able to provide you with a really quality experience when you are on your journey to becoming a teacher. There are approximately 9,000 new jobs in teaching there were approximately 9,000 new jobs in teaching between 2018 and 2023 across Australia. And what this means is teachers are really in demand at the moment, and we can see this when we're on the ground communicating with our partner schools. And you can also see this in the jobs that are available at the end of the year. You will graduate classroom ready from the Bachelor of Education Primary. There are many opportunities for you to understand exactly what is required of you as a primary school teacher, and many, many opportunities for you to practice those skills as you prepare to graduate from the course. I'd like to introduce to you one of our students or our graduates from the Bachelor of Education Primary course, Mitchell. So Mitchell is somebody who I worked closely with as he had his journey throughout the course, and he has given us a quote here that describes his experience of the Bachelor of Education Primary. So Mitchell says, "I chose this field as I have a passion for the development of young people. I want to gain the tools to become a resource to promote the growth of young individuals. This course has exceeded my expectations, as I could never have expected to grow so much as a person in terms of maturity, overall knowledge of all things, and my growing passion for teaching." And I love that Mitchell has shared this with us and shared this with you all, because this is something that I was able to see in Mitchell as he progressed through the course. I remember watching him and working with him as he did have that journey and that growth in himself as he prepared to become a teacher, and as he graduated and is now able to put those skills into practice in his own primary classroom. So thank you so much, Mitchell, for providing that feedback for all of the interested prospective students today. So I'm going to give you some specific information relating to the Bachelor of Education Primary because it's important that you know what the degree is all about. It's a 4-year full-time course, or you can study part-time if that's your preference. Depending on how part-time you are, the course will extend to be a little bit longer than 4 years. Depends how many subjects you do each trimester. It's a campus-based degree, which means that you are taught face-to-face on one of our Deakin campuses, and we offer the course at Burwood, Geelong in Waurn Ponds or Warrnambool. We also have an offering at our Naikiri Institute. The course is industry developed and it's supported with close links to the education sector. It's focused on developing your practical skills so you can go from the lecture hall to the classroom without missing a beat, and you get a lot of opportunity to do that throughout the journey in the course. The course is taught by staff who have teaching experience and are recognised leaders and innovators in their fields. Throughout the course, we offer specialisations and other options to enable you to develop the career you want and to follow the areas of interest and the pathways that you're interested in as you study with us. So that you can understand how the course fits together, we've put this diagram up on the screen for you. So you can see in the yellow circle there that the whole course is 32 credit points, which basically means that you complete 32 different subjects across a 4-year full-time degree. Of those 32 subjects, 26 of them are what we call core. So that means that you complete those subjects with all of the people who come into your course in your course cohort, who you will start with and move through the course with and eventually graduate with. These are people who you will probably end up working in the teaching profession alongside, and most of our students maintain some really positive professional and personal relationships with students who they've studied in post-graduation as well. You'll also have 4 specialisation units, which I will talk about a little more in a moment. That is a particular option for you within the course. And you will have 2 elective units, which opens up another option for you in terms of choosing your journey through the course. So the light green and the turquoise colour there, you've got 6 subjects in total where you've got some choices to make as to where the course takes you. I've popped up a course map for you here. You can see the names of all of the subjects here, but the one thing that I'd like to really draw your attention to is the 7 units in yellow. So these are part of the core units that I've just talked about. And these units are the ones where you undertake a professional experience placement, or they're the ones where you spend time in a primary school practicing your teaching skills in a real school with real children. So we'll talk a little bit more about placement later, but I wanted you to see that those placement experiences begin in the first year of the course and they run all the way through the course until graduation. So you're getting constant exposure and constant experiences in the primary school classroom. So I mentioned before that one of the areas of choice you have within the course are specialisations. So we have 5 specialisations that you're able to choose from at Deakin. There are several government priority areas that we've included, and we've also included some particular areas based on student demand. So government priority areas include language and literacy, mathematics and numeracy, and science. There's also a real interest from the government in terms of languages. So these are languages other than English, language teaching. And one of our most in-demand specialisations is health and physical education. So when you come into the Bachelor of Education primary course, at the end of your first year, after you have had exposure to a range of different subject areas in the primary classroom, you will get to choose one of these specialisations, and then you will complete 4 subjects in this area of specialisation to give you a little bit of an edge in that area when it comes to being a primary teacher. It's not going to turn you into a science-only teacher. You'll still be a primary classroom teacher, but it just means that you've had some extra learning and some extra experiences in the area you choose, science, for example. We also have some other specific opportunities at Deakin within the Bachelor of Education primary course, which are quite unique. One of those is the Inclusive Education elective sequence. So we noted before that there were 2 electives within the course. You could choose to use these to have a specific learning focus on the area of inclusive education. So inclusive education looks at how we can support all learners in the generalist primary classroom. So this might include learners with some specific additional needs or special needs. It also might include learners with some other differences that are impacting their learning. So you will experience some additional learning in inclusive education as a part of this elective sequence, which will complement the learning that is already included in the course in the core subjects that you do. Another option that you might engage with is our International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program elective sequence. And so what you do in this sequence is you use those 2 elective units to complete some specific units that have been certified by the International Baccalaureate Organisation. And upon graduation, this means that you can apply for an additional qualification called the International Baccalaureate Certificate in Teaching and Learning, PYP, which comes from the International Baccalaureate Organisation. So this is a special opportunity that we have at Deakin within the Bachelor of Education primary course, and something of interest to quite a few employers out there who teach within this context. Another option, which is by invitation, is the Access Quality Teachers program. The Access Quality Teachers program aims to support our graduates in understanding how they might work specifically with students who are in low socioeconomic areas. So there can be some particular needs that students who are learning in low socioeconomic areas need in terms of their learning, and this program allows our pre-service teachers and then our graduates to develop specific skills in this area, complemented by the core learning that they do in the course. Additionally, there are several opportunities for primary school-based learning experiences which are directly supported by Deakin academics and are within the core units. So what this means is that as well as your placements, you actually get more time in schools to practice those skills. And in these circumstances, when they're within the units or the subjects that you're completing, you are supported by Deakin academics whilst you're undertaking that learning in schools. We have a particularly well-structured professional experience program at Deakin. At Deakin, our placements are organised by a team of experts, and you will be placed in some of Deakin's 1,400 partner schools across Australia. When you're on placement, you will be supported by an expert Deakin visiting academic. So you will have a visit on your placement. You will be able to have a discussion with that Deakin academic about how you're going on your placement and receive supports and encouragement in the work that you're doing on placement. Many of our Bachelor of Education primary placements occur within Deakin's teaching academies and alliances, which are where students receive preferred placements. So these teaching academies you can see there in yellow. So we have teaching academies and particular relationships with schools in Geelong, Warrnambool and Melbourne around our 3 campuses. And we also have an additional teaching academy in Horsham, which we share with other partner universities. The advantage of undertaking placements in our academies and alliances is that you are able to access enhanced opportunities to reflect on and refine your teaching strategies in the moment in your placement school, supported by a dedicated Deakin site director. The alliances foster The alliances foster government-supported and mutually beneficial partnerships between Deakin and our school communities, and we're really proud to have such an extensive group of academies and alliances to be involved with. A little bit more information relating to the professional experience program and placements, particularly relating to the BEd primary. So you will complete at least 80 days of professional experience in placements, with at least one placement per trimester from year 1, trimester 2 onward. And you saw that in the map that we looked at before, that big yellow block of placement units that we looked at. In first year, you engage in a structured placement experience with your peers who are also studying in the course in a primary school, directly supported by Deakin academics during the placement. This leads to 2 second-year experiences where you will begin to design and teach your own lessons, supported and encouraged by your school mentor and Deakin staff. In third year, you can request placements according to your personal career goals. And so some of the options include a rural or remote placement through our pre-service teacher rural placement program, a regional placement, a metropolitan placement, placements at international baccalaureate schools, placements in special education schools, or placements within Deakin's Global Experience program, where you might study and learn within locations such as the Northern Territory, Switzerland, or Vanuatu. Following this, in fourth year, you'll meet with our placement experts individually, one-on-one, to plan your last 35 days of placement and to meet your graduation and career requirements. And you'll get the opportunity to put forward suggestions of specific schools where you would like to be placed and hear from the expert experiences of our placement officers during those interviews. So you might be wondering at this point, well, how do I apply for the course and what are the prerequisites? These are going to be different depending on your background. So I'm going to share with you the course prerequisites for school leavers first. So if you're at school currently and you're looking to come into the Bachelor of Education Primary, there is a minimum ATAR requirement for the course of 70. And you can see there that the most recent ATARs for our selection are a little bit above 70 and are actually varied from campus to campus, but there is a minimum requirement of 70 for the course. You will need to undertake the CASPA, which I will talk about a little more, and that is also an entry requirement. And there are a few prerequisites that you will need to meet. So prerequisites relating to English are that you need to have a study score of at least 35 in English EAL, if that is the English you're studying, or at least 25 in English other than EAL. So any other Englishes, we need 25, English EAL, we need 35. In addition to this, you will also need to undertake units 1 and 2 of general maths or maths methods or specialist maths, or units 3 and 4 of any maths. So remember that we have those prerequisites there. This is something that you might like to plan as you prepare to enter the course. If you are a non-school leaver, there are some different prerequisites that you will need to meet. So again, the CASPA test is going to be required, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You might also have successful completion of the Deakin Associate Degree of Education, which we will talk about a little bit later in this presentation. That is one option. Or you might have successful completion of the STAT test and or other evidence of ability to meet the academic demands of the course. You might complete a personal statement outlining your motivation, learning goals, strengths, personal strengths, and any other prior experience of learning. So you can see that the prerequisites are a little different there. And this is about telling us about you so that we can understand what your experiences are in terms of gaining entry into the course. So I've mentioned twice now the CASPA test. This is something that you will need to do to gain entry into the Bachelor of Education Primary. The CASPA test is a non-academic entry requirement for primary teaching degrees. It assesses teaching skills such as communication, teamwork, empathy, ethics, problem solving, and professionalism. It's an online test, and you can take it. You can take practice tests from the website that we've got on the page here. It does cost $80 to sit the CASPER assessment test. If you are an international student, there is an English entry requirement that you need to meet. So you need to get an IELTS band score of 7 with no band less than 6.5. There are some academic entry requirements. International 2022 VCE students need to apply through VTAC, and you should refer to the VTAC website. Any other international students must have completed Australian Year 12 or equivalent and meet the admission score relevant to your qualification. For more information about academic and English entry requirements for international students, please attend the Apply to Deakin as an International Student session. And if you can't attend the session, there's a link here. So how do you apply to the BEd Primary? If you're a school leaver, we ask that you submit your application via VTAC. And if you're a non-school leaver, we ask that you apply direct in the trimester 1 March intake. The applications open for that in August and they close in February. I'd now like to take some time to talk about the Associate Degree of Education on behalf of Dr. Emma Charlton, who is the course director of that course. So why might you study the Associate Degree of Education? This is a 2-year full-time or part-time equivalent course and is also campus-based at Burwood, Waurn Ponds or Warrnambool. Deakin's associate degrees are unique and there is no other equivalent program anywhere else in Australia. If you complete the Associate Degree of Education, you'll have guaranteed entry into the Bachelor of Education Primary, including 12 credit points of recognition of prior learning. You'll complete education units in your first year of study, including a primary school placement. Deakin's associate degrees are Commonwealth supported HECS courses, which means they are not full fee paying, which is great. And there are student advisors available to help you design your course. I'd like to read a quote here from Donna about her experience as an Associate Degree of Education student. I have absolutely loved studying the Associate Degree of Education to bridge into primary education. I feel that this has given me the best start to university that I could ever have asked for. The whole experience so far has just felt right. I have been given the right tools and advice to help me succeed from amazing and inspiring teaching staff. And thank you, Donna. And really, that's what the Associate Degree of Education is all about. It's about giving you the right supports to move into your studies at university and be a really successful learner at university. In order to do that, there's a very specific course structure. So you can see that it's 16 credit points because it's a shorter course. There are 4 foundation units. These are the ones that really assist you in that transition to university. There are 9 core education units, 2 education specialisation units, and 2 education elective units. So these are all units that we've talked about earlier in the presentation that come from the Bachelor of Education Primary. I'd like to focus specifically on the units that are unique to this degree, which are in yellow here. So I'll just go through the titles here and you'll be able to hear that these are specifically designed for supporting you as you start your university studies. You will undertake communication skills for study and work, digital literacy, finding, evaluating and interpreting information, teamwork, working constructively with others, and critical thinking and problem solving. And all of these aspects are absolutely essential to learners at university to be able to undertake their study with success. So how can the Associate Degree of Education support you? There are a range of different ways that this can happen within the degree. There are study support services. You can study foundation units, which we've just talked about, to set you up for success. There's career development support. You will build your transferable learning skills. You'll be a part of supportive and collaborative environments, and it's practical and exciting face-to-face classes on campus from day one. So what are the entry requirements for this course? They're a little bit different. So If you're a school leaver or a non-school leaver, the CASPA is not required for this course. The selection, if you're a school leaver, is based on your performance in your senior secondary certificate of education, plus a submission of a personal statement outlining your motivation and learning history. If you've got previous tertiary, vet, life, or work experience, so a really large range of options there, if you've completed a Certificate 3, or if you have other evidence of your academic capability that is judged to be equivalent, and you also submit a personal statement outlining your motivation and your learning history. So these are the requirements for entry into the Associate Degree of Education. So how can you apply for this course? Well, for the Associate Degree of Education, you apply direct to Deakin, whether you are a school leaver or a non-school leaver. So the applications for trimester 1 2023 open in August, and you can go to deakin.edu.au/apply. The supporting documentation you will need to provide is a personal statement of approximately 500 words outlining your motivation to study and your future aspirations. You should also include a brief resume, including any work experience, volunteering, and extracurricular activities, and any other supporting documentation which you feel would strengthen your application, for example, a character referee. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this session about the Bachelor of Education Primary and the Associate Degree of Education. I'd also like to invite you to join our live Q&A session, which is up next, to get your questions answered. Explore the resources on this page and across the Virtual Open Day website. Chat to our experts on web chat at any time. Discover our student stories at deakin.edu.au/artsedstories. And join us on campus at Open Day in August to experience our facilities, soak up the campus vibe, and talk to experts. Thank you once again for coming along, and I look forward to answering your questions in the live Q&A.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Primary Teaching and Pathways live Q&A session. My name is Associate Professor Wanti Wijaya and I'll be the MC for today's session. And today I'm joined by Adrina El-Hashim as the course director of the Bachelor of Education Primary and Dr. Emma Charlton as the course director of Associate Degree of Education. So if you would like to ask a question, please type your question into the Q&A section in the question panel on this page. We will do our best to answer all your questions during this session. And if you have any unanswered question at the end of the session, our team of experts will be available on web chat all day to assist you with any questions, including any specific questions regarding international student-related admission and fees queries. Please click on the web chat icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen after the session to be connected with our team. So we have quite a number of questions already to kick us off. So thank you for the question. I'll start with a question from Penny. So Penny asked, can we choose the schools we do teaching placements at, or are we get placed? And the other questions is, do we have to do rural placements or private school placements? Great question, Penny. So I might get Adrina to answer this first, and then Emma can jump in and add more response from your perspective. Thanks, Adrina.
Thanks, Wanti, and thanks, Penny, for your question. There's a lot of important information that I can answer in relation to that question. So first of all, in asking whether you get to choose your placement, in the Bachelor of Education Primary, the answer is both yes and no. So in the beginning of the course, you don't get to choose your placement. However, our team of placement officers in our professional experience office will place you somewhere that is relatively close to your home so that it's quite accessible for you to attend placement. And that continues from first year into second year. In third year, you get some options about what you would like to do with your placement. And this goes into your questions around placements in rural areas. So it is an option that you can select to say, I would love to do a placement in a rural area. It's not a requirement though. You don't have to do a placement in a rural area, but we do have a rural placement program for Warrnambool and Horsham as well at the moment, which is a really fantastic opportunity for those students who would like to take it up. So there are a range of different choices that you can undertake at third year. Then when you move into fourth year, as you're preparing to go into fourth year, so usually right at the very end of the year prior to your fourth year, you'll be invited for a one-on-one interview with our placement officers. And in that meeting, you can talk to them about what your desire is for your future as a teacher after you graduate. You can mention some specific schools that they will try and get you a placement at. And you can also have a discussion around different types of schools. So you asked about private schools. You might want to say, I'd really love to have a placement in a private school, or I'd really love to have a placement in a Catholic school, or whatever you would like to ask about. And that's something that you can discuss there. The only other thing I would mention in relation to placements in private schools is that in our International Baccalaureate Pathway program, you do have to undertake placements if you choose to do that in International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program accredited schools, which is a lot of words, but essentially it's schools who are accredited to teach that particular program. Many of the schools who are involved in the accreditation of that program are private schools, but we also have a range of schools that we're partnered with who are Victorian government schools. And so there is an opportunity for both government and non-government schools in undertaking that. So hopefully, Penny, that answers your question and gives you a little bit more information and detail about our placement program.
Thanks, Edwina, for the comprehensive response. Anything to add there, Emma?
I don't have anything huge to add, but I did want to ask Edwina about the Global Experience Program. Is that still something that runs for students in their third year? Is that right?
So the Global Experience Program is something that has been a really big part of our program in the Bachelor of Education Primary. We've had a few hiccups with it, as you'd all understand, during the COVID years. It is something that we're hoping to really start off again as soon as we're able to. In particular, I think we're looking at options for placements in the Northern Territory through that program.
Thanks.
Great. Such a good thing that students can do. So I'm glad you mentioned it. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really great program at Deakin. And we are actually, just to add to that, we are actually going to welcome GEP students from Switzerland this coming trimester. So that will start off the GEP program. And like Edwina said, that the next destination that we are trying to do is the Northern Territory, hopefully sometime soon. Okay, so there's another question then. This is for you, Emma. There's a question, if I'm not sure if I'll get into the Bachelor of Education Primary course, should I also apply for the Associate Degree of Education?
Thanks so much, Monty, and thank you, asker of the question. I would say yes. It's a good idea to have a backup plan just in case you don't get the, get into the program that you were hoping to get into. The Associate Degree of Education is a pathway program into the Bachelor of Education Primary, and it adds an extra year to your journey. So it will end up being a 5-year path to becoming a primary school teacher. But the interesting thing about the Associate Degree of Education is it's just been accredited, and so it acts as a pathway into any primary ITE program in Victoria. So I think it's a good pathway to get where you want to go. Absolutely.
Thank you. Excellent. This next question is about the opportunity to teach in secondary school if you complete a Bachelor of Education Primary course. So I think this is a question for you, Edwina.
Thanks, Wanti. This is an interesting question that prospective students often ask, and it's a great one to ask. So the Bachelor of Education Primary, in terms of what we teach you, is very focused on learning how to become a primary teacher. Our teaching is very specific in terms of learning how to teach students who are in those prep or foundation years up to grade 6. And it's also very specific in terms of being a generalist primary school teacher or a generalist classroom teacher. So what we mean by generalist is that you'll learn how to teach each of the subjects that are in the primary school curriculum so that you're able to teach across those different subject areas, which is a little bit different to the way you learn to be a secondary teacher, which often leaves you focusing on 2 specific areas. So you might become a maths and science teacher, for example, in a secondary school. However, having said that, even though our course focuses on primary teaching and you have all your placements in primary schools as you go through, when you graduate from the course, if you apply to the Victorian Institute of Teaching to gain your teacher registration, which you are eligible to do when you graduate from the course, you will get a teacher registration. So it's not a primary teacher registration. The Victorian Institute of Teaching, or the VIT, doesn't register teachers in that way. They just register you as a teacher. And so what that means is you can apply to teach in a secondary school, and you can use your degree that you've gained in teaching and also your VIT teacher registration in order to do that. And we do have quite a number of graduates who are employed to teach in secondary areas of schools. Most particularly, they're often employed to teach in years 7 and 8. And often it's secondary schools who run a special transition type of program for those first couple of years of secondary school, who are actually really interested in our primary teaching graduates, because you graduate with that breadth of knowledge across the curriculum areas rather than just with expertise in 1 or 2 specific areas. So long story short, yes, you can teach in secondary schools. However, this course is very focused on teaching you how to be a primary teacher.
Thanks, Edwina. That's very clear, I hope. And this is kind of like connected to your earlier point about International Baccalaureate program as an elective in the BEd primary course. Is it possible for students who are doing this course, when they finish the degree, to teach in primary schools in different countries?
Another great question. So yes, it is. And it would be particularly helpful, I would say, if you were looking to teach overseas, if you chose to undertake the International Baccalaureate pathway. So the International Baccalaureate is a program that is in schools across the world. And so this is one of the reasons why it might be easier to gain employment internationally in a primary school if you've undertaken that sequence. However, completing the course and not undertaking the International Baccalaureate sequence, if you choose to do something different, you might choose the Inclusive Education sequence, for example. That doesn't preclude you from teaching overseas. One thing I would say is that countries other than Australia have different processes in terms of how they register teachers and how teachers are able to be a teacher in the classroom, essentially. So that would be something that you would need to investigate in relation to the particular country that you're hoping to teach in, because it does vary from country to country. Different countries have different rules.
Thank you, Edwina, again. So there are a few questions coming from the audience about workload and contact hours for both courses. So I'll start with Emma. If you can walk us through some of the time commitment for your course.
So the Associate Degree of Education, which I direct, is a pathway program, and it's there to sort of provide students with a lot of knowledge about how universities work. So what we would tell students at the very beginning of their degree is that each unit of study that you are enrolled in is 10 hours a week. So a full-time load tends to be 4 units. And so we would say to students that you really need to have space within your weekly schedule for 40 hours. Now that's not 40 hours on campus or in your online learning environment, often what you actually have as contact hours is between 2 and 3 hours per unit. So you might do 4 units, you might have 12 hours of scheduled like lectures and seminars, and then the rest of that time is self-directed learning, where you're going to be doing reading, research, writing of your assessment pieces, etc. So a lot of people are really shocked when I say that. It's 40 hours a week and you need to make time for that. But it really is helpful if you've got that sort of expectation coming in, because, you know, at the beginning, it might not feel like you've got that much to do, but when it hits week 4 and your assessment starts being due, yeah, you really do need that time. So I would say 40 hours a week needs to be within your schedule. What would you add, Edwina? Placements change everything, don't they?
Yeah, so thanks, Emma. I'm going to actually use that explanation with my students in my BEd primary course. That's really helpful, I think. The only thing that I would just add to that in relation to the Bachelor of Education Primary specifically is that when you go on placement, the placements are essentially full-time. So if you're undertaking a 10-day placement, which most of the placements in the course are 10 days, that would mean that you would be at school each day for 2 weeks. And so what students find that they need to do is basically plan their work commitments and things like that that they may have, as well as their study around those periods. And we do make the placement calendars available at the end of the year prior. So for 2023, we will make the placement calendar available at the end of this year, so that there's plenty of time for you to plan with your employer or around your children or whatever that your personal circumstances may be. The other thing I would add is that it is possible to study part-time. So if 40 hours a week sounds like more than you could manage, you could choose to do less than a full-time load, so less than 4 subjects. And that would, of course, reduce the number of hours that you would need to spend on your studies.
Yeah, I was going to add that in as well. Like actually 3 units a trimester is still considered full-time. So if you wanted to say, and I often have students do that, they start off thinking, oh yes, I can do 4 units. And then they think, oh, actually, this is a little bit challenging for when I'm first starting. I'm going to reduce to 3. It's a bit easier to fit into your timetable. And then often there's a chance to catch up on that 4th unit that you kind of delayed in trimester 3. So there are ways to wiggle it so that you can sort of manage. But students these days are working more and more to support themselves in their studies, and we totally understand.
Yeah, there are other commitments as well in their life, busy life. So there's also a question here from the audience about why should you choose Deakin over other universities? And I don't know whether Emma, you would like to start first? And
well, yeah. So there's so many reasons why to pick Deakin, but I guess in terms of this particular pathway, if you were to need a pathway into higher education, this particular pathway is excellent. It's accredited, it provides the most credit for prior learning of any pathway that you could take, and it provides you with a qualification. So you'll graduate with an associate degree of education, which is a qualification in its own right. And then you go into that Bachelor of Primary Education with that already qualification and experience under your belt, and with the potential to do really well within your program. So that would be my answer. And then Edwina will have fantastic things to say about the Bachelor of Education Primary.
So thanks, Emma. I think in relation to the Bachelor of Education Primary, if you've been looking around at primary degree courses, you will have noticed that there are quite a few around. And I think it's really understandable that you would like to compare them and see which one you think sounds best for you. One of the things that I would say in relation to our Bachelor of Education Primary at Deakin is that we have a lot of different options in the course. So we have quite a large student cohort at Deakin, and our Bachelor of Education Primary is very, very established. We've had it for a really long time. We've had many, many students go through our course and graduate, and it's quite common for our current students to go out into a school and find out that their mentor says that they've actually been a previous graduate from our course. So there are a lot of Deakin BEd Primary graduate teachers out there. So some of the things that are a little bit different about our program in comparison to some other programs is that we will find your placements for you. which is, I think, a really important aspect of looking at a course. It's very hard to have to find your own placements. We've got a very big team of staff, and we are very focused on maintaining that team, and we value the team and the work that they do. We also, because of that team, have many relationships with schools in Victoria, but also around Australia, that enable us to make sure that you have really quality placement experiences and not just a placement experience. We also support our students really significantly during their placement, whilst they're not at university, as well as their time at university. Within the course itself, we have a few options that you won't probably find in many of the other courses. So we've talked about the International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program sequence. We also have an inclusive education elective sequence, which allows you to extend the knowledge that you gain through the core units in the course in the area of inclusive education, a very, very important area and something that principals have really said that they value about our course. And in addition to that, we have 5 different options for primary specialisations that you can choose from, which includes health and PE, which is a bit of a unique one, and also languages. So languages other than English we're talking about there, that's also very unique. So I would encourage you to have a look at those aspects, those extra bits and pieces that you can experience at Deakin that may not be available in all of the different courses. That's something I would be using if I was looking at primary courses to weigh up my choices.
Excellent responses from both of you. Thank you so much. We have another question about entry requirements, just to follow up on that and the process. So if students are interested to apply into either the Associate Degree of Education course or the Bachelor of Education Primary, are they required to put in preferences through VTAC if this is the preferred entry into, for example, the Bachelor of Education Primary course?
So I can start us off there. The Associate Degree of Education is not listed through VTAC, and so students who are interested in that program apply directly. Direct applications open later this year, but then once they open, I think it's around October, you can just apply anytime, and we have rolling processing of those applications. So we can't go through VTAC, we just do a direct application, and in that direct application you put down your sort of educational experiences and you write a letter where you sort of explain why it is you want to take this particular pathway.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, Edwina?
So in the Bachelor of Education Primary, it's a little bit similar and a little bit different to what Emma's just described. So if you're a school leaver, if you're coming straight from school, we ask that you apply via VTAC. However, if you've got a bit of life experience, it's maybe been a little while since you were at school, you can make a direct application in order to express your interest in becoming part of the BEd Primary course.
Yeah, I think that if you want interested to hear more, the video recording of the information session of the course have all those information. Edwina talk about that in great detail as well. So there's also a question about how do placements work if I'm a CLUT student. From my understanding, the Bachelor of Education Primary course is actually a campus-based course, so we don't have the CLUT option, but I'll let Edwina and Emma to clarify that for us.
So for the Associate Degree of Education, you're right, Wunti, we are a campus-based program. Post-COVID, we have provided the opportunity for students to do certain units with a seminar that's online. So it still is an attendance situation, but the seminar is delivered online. But our preference is for students to come onto campus, and the online seminar is offered because we understand that some students are dealing with some, complicated health situations, geographical situations. So we're aware that that's a challenge, and we do offer an online stream, but we are an on-campus attendance-based program.
So similarly to what Emma's just described, we are also a campus-based course. So the Bachelor of Education Primary, in the same way that the Associate Degree of Education is is offered in Warrnambool at our Warrnambool campus, in Geelong at our Warn Ponds campus, and in Melbourne at our Burwood campus. And we also have an offering at our at Naikiri, which is based in Warn Ponds in Geelong. So when it comes to the question about placements, whilst you can't be a cloud student in the course because we don't have that offering, we do from time to time have students who request to have placements in other states. So a good example of this is sometimes we have Warrnambool students who might live just across the border in South Australia, and sometimes they might ask to have their placements in South Australia. This is something that we can facilitate, and your placement really just occurs the same way that it would if you were in Victoria near one of our campuses. What it does mean is that the support that you have while you're on placement is more likely to be remote. So you might have a Zoom meeting with the Deakin academic who is visiting you rather than a face-to-face meeting. But this is something that our placement office can easily organise if you need it, particularly for the students who live on res who might like to do one of their placements at home. And it's something that we've become very accustomed to during COVID, particularly when we had things like border closures and things like that, where people were stuck in New South Wales and they couldn't come to Victoria for their placements. We've got lots of relationships in schools interstate that can allow us to facilitate those if we need to.
Thank you again. So I think this is a great question again from the audience. It's asking about the percentage. What is the percentage of employment rate for graduates after they finish the course? What is the percentage of them being employed by schools or by other organizations? Who would like to start? Maybe Edwina?
The audience member has caught me a little bit here in terms of my specific number. It's hard to remember because it does change very slightly from year to year. However, what I can tell you is that a very high proportion of our graduates are employed prior to the beginning of the new school year. So when you undertake the Bachelor of Education Primary, nearly every student, with a few exceptions if you've been part-time, will graduate at the end of the calendar year. And so what that means is there's a few months break over the school summer holidays before you would start teaching at the end of January. And a very high proportion of students are employed ready to go in that end of January period for their teaching. We do have a group of students who actually choose not to. So it might be that they've got family commitments. Some students like to just take a bit of a break after 4 years of intense study. We also have some graduates who choose to undertake what we call CRT or casual teaching. And so usually you wouldn't start on the very first day of term if you did that, because mostly all the teachers are there on those days, but there's a lot of work in teaching at the moment. Our graduates have always been very sought after and very employable. However, schools at the moment are really facing a bit of a teacher shortage, and we don't see that that teacher shortage is going to go away anytime soon. So I think if you're thinking about whether you might come into a teaching course and become a teacher, in terms of employment possibilities, we would really expect them to be very, very high. And we would expect that if you were looking for a full-time teaching position in a school, you would have a very, very strong chance of gaining one.
Thanks, Edwina. Yeah, and also I think as you mentioned earlier, Deakin students, Deakin pre-service teachers are very well supported. I think in the final year, there will be some activities to get them ready to apply for jobs and addressing the kind of like requirements by the schools. I think even from someone from the schools or recent graduates that share that experience, who come and share their experience. Is that right, Edwina?
Yeah, that's right. So we have a really structured program in the final trimester. In fact, we're just about to start doing it for our current final year students, where we support you in being able to ask questions of principals on a panel of what they're looking for in applicants, what they're looking for in interviews. You can ask questions like, what should I wear? There's a lot of different questions that you can ask. We also give support in terms of writing job applications and things like that, so that you can feel really prepared to make that transition from being a pre-service teacher in the course to being a graduate teacher. So yeah, you're not on your own when it comes to that. And I think this is probably some of what also adds to the success of our students gaining employment on graduation.
Thanks, Adrina. So Emma, there is a question about associate degree pathway. So we have an audience that's a bit nervous about starting uni. So the question is, should I do associate degree of education or apply for the BA primary or both? Or should, these potential students speak to you first and then you have a consultation before they decide?
It's such an interesting question. And firstly, it's totally normal to be nervous about starting university. That is a very normal feeling. Anything new, anything that's a bit unknown, it's very normal to be nervous about it. I do think it would be a good idea, regardless of whether you're nervous, to apply for both, because the requirements for getting into teaching these days are quite high with the ATAR requirement and the maths requirement. So I think it's good to give yourself that backup. If you do qualify for direct entry into the Bachelor of Education Primary, it's probably a good idea to take that path, because it will be 4 years rather than 5. And so that is, a year is a big block of time. But I do think that the Associate Degree of Education is still a good choice, even if you wanted to choose it, because it does have these 4 foundation units that provide a lot of support. They provide the opportunity to build relationships with other students, and we talk a lot about how universities work and how to do the assessment. So it's a really good path, and I think that it'll suit a lot of students really well. But if you qualify for direct entry, I think it'd be good to have a chat to a student advisor to really see what the best choice is. But I would think that going into that program probably would be the best choice.
Thanks, Emma. Is there anything else to add there, Adrina, from your perspective?
I think Emma's pretty much covered it, but I just wanted to say that when we have students who come into the Bachelor of Education Primary having completed the Associate Degree of Education, I think we often see that they are really well prepared to come into the course. And I think particularly if you may have been not studied for a little while, you might be feeling a bit nervous in that regard. I think the associate degree is a really good option.
Yeah. Thank you. We are coming to the end of our live Q&A session. Thank you so much all for the great questions that you have posed to us and get us to start this conversation. So unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you again for joining us today. It's really great to see so many excellent questions and to see your interest in our courses, the Bachelor of Education Primary, as well as the Associate Degree of Education. So if we haven't responded to your question today, please again reach out to our all-day web chat at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And our expert staff will be ready to answer your questions. If you would like to learn more about the courses at Deakin, the Bachelor of Education Primary course and the Associate Degree of Education, there's a lot of information available on our Open Day website. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. And we really look forward to seeing you at Deakin very soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.